Hey there, everybody. Welcome in. It is time for Three Guys Before the Game, and this is a special episode. We are remembering the all-time greatest basketball player in West Virginia history, Jerry West, who passed away on Wednesday, the 12th of June at the age of 86. Thanks for being with us. Tony Caridi along with Brad Howe. Coming up on our program, we'll look back and share some stories about the legend, Jerry West. John Beilein will join us here in just a couple of minutes. We'll also give you a deep West Virginia perspective from a voice that you know well, and that's Jeff Jenkins, the news director of WVMetroNews.com, attended the same high school, East Bank, as Jerry West, and grew up obviously right there, knowing all the folks that knew him and idolized him growing up. Also, we'll hear from Willie Akers, a teammate of Jerry's at West Virginia, and the two of them remain friends. I mean, the closest of friends their entire lives. Also, John Antoniuk, the person in charge of content for WVU Sports, with some historical perspective. Chris Wallace, who is a two-time general manager in the NBA, now with the Houston Rockets organization, a Buchanan native, shares his thoughts and how Jerry West helped him through the years, plus a couple of emails that we've received over the last 24 hours from folks in which Jerry had an impact on their lives as young West Virginians. Three Guys Before the Game is brought to us by Comax Business Systems, keeping West Virginia's business data safe, secure, and efficient for 25 years. By GoMart. Go for good times. Go for GoMart. Get that GoMart rewards card and save on fuel and food. And Lou Wendell Marine Sales in St. Albans. They sell family fun. They've been doing it for nearly a half a century. Visit LouWendellMarineSales.com, the premier pontoon boat dealer in our state of West Virginia. All right. Senator, what do you say we just jump right on in?
Let's go. Got a great guest waiting.
Yes, we do. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the program former WVU head basketball coach, John Beilein. Hello, sir. How are you?
Hello, everybody. It's great to talk with you. Brad's on as well, right?
Yes, sir, Coach. Good to talk with you.
Yeah, hi, Brad. I just spent 3 days in West Virginia, believe it or not, down in Canaan Valley, doing on a 3-day golf trip. The first golf trip of my life ever.
First one ever.
Ever. I've never gone on a golf trip. And what a beautiful spot they have down there in Canaan Valley. Good gracious. Wonderful. So just did that. But I heard about the passing of Jerry while I was there, and sad, but I thought, what a spectacular life that man led. From where he came from to how it all has finised up. Man, it's a life many of us would like to lead, I think, right?
Absolutely.
And, Johnny, I remain in contact with Johnny because I recruited him and coached him a little bit. But I got to send him a message, and it's sad to lose such a incredible man and influence on so many in basketball. So it's great. It's great. You want to hear a few stories?
I'd love to, and I think this, since your life has been the game of basketball, let's go all the way back. Little kid growing up, Western New York. I mean, Jerry West was when you were a relatively young kid, right? He is coming. He's done with college, 60, into the league, and plays a decade plus in. So what were your just initial, before you ever knew that you were ever going to know Jerry West, what was Jerry West to you as a kid growing up?
It's one of my stories. I'm a young kid growing up, black and white TV, and we were lucky if we ever got a Sunday NBA game back in those days, in the 60s, low 60s. You were lucky if you got an NBA game. And I remember seeing this play, which I still call Jerry West the rest of my life, is Jerry coming off some type of ball screen by Wilt Chamberlain, goes in and gets to like the right elbow and just shoots it in. And then a few more times down the court, here I am, probably 10 or 12 years old. The next time down, he comes down and he looks like he's going to shoot it, and he like fires it down to Wilt, who dunks it. And from then on, that right elbow jump shot, which you saw so many of our players hit for years, we used to train it. And I used to actually say, get to Jerry West, against a drop coverage in a ball screen. So I had to change it, of course, when I went to Michigan, but I loved it when I got to do it at West Virginia. But I still see that grainy black and white TV and him coming off, and that jump shot had such a high release that nobody could get to it.
Yeah.
It was amazing how self-taught, perfect jump shot he had, and we obviously know that when you look at the NBA logo every day.
You and he do share something in the sense that both of you were incredible evaluators of talent. He had that knack. You had that knack. We've seen the guys that you were able to say, hey, I think this kid's got a chance, right?
Yeah.
All right. So put your hat on in that regard. And why was Jerry West so good? When you evaluated his game, what made him one of the all-time greatest? What was he doing?
I think he wasn't afraid to speak his mind, and I'll tell you about that, and trust his instincts. He didn't, go out and look for confirmation from others. He knew what he saw, and he wasn't afraid to be wrong, and it led to some great decisions with so many teams. I think character was a big issue as well, and he was looking for the right guys, and even people that either played for him or that he chose, they usually had the right character about them. But I'll tell you, the first time that I ever met him, he actually met Kathleen before me, Madison Square Garden, first year at Michigan. We're struggling, right? He meets my wife somewhere. Now, Patrick's on the team. He meets my wife somewhere in the stands, probably just as sitting next near him or something, and the first thing he says is, "Your husband's got to get better players." And then he sees me afterwards. Now Patrick's one of the players now. He says to me, "You got to get better players, or they got to get a whole lot better." And we didn't get better players, but they got a whole lot better. During the 4 years. So this is talking about J.D. Collins and Johannes and Patrick and Kevin Pisnagel and everybody. But he wasn't afraid to speak that.
No, you're exactly right. I think that's one thing that maybe a majority of people don't know. He was brutally honest. He wouldn't sugarcoat he wouldn't sugarcoat anything, and that was the thing.
To anyone.
Yeah.
I mean, it didn't matter who he was speaking to, Coach, right? I mean, he was 100%. I've heard him speak on that. Is he thought that was one of his magic sources. What he just said, I'll never lie to a player. I will be brutally honest every time.
Well, this was later in my thoughts of my stories, but when I took the Cavaliers job, it was the combine like the next day. So I go to the combine. I'm sitting with Mike Gansey, general manager of the Cleveland Cavaliers. He sees us from across the room, and he starts right for me. And I said, "Watch, Mike. He's going to tell me I'm expletive crazy." So sure enough, he walks up to me and said, "Coach, what are you? Expletive crazy?" And it wasn't like congratulations, good luck. It was like, "You're not. Why are you doing this?"
Exactly.
He said the same thing about Johnny. He questioned whether Johnny was good enough when I was recruiting him. I mean, that's like, you don't see many parents doing that, right?
He negative recruited his own kid.
Yeah, and I just said, no, Johnny's got a chance because he's got a young birthday, skinny, and I trusted the DNA a lot too. I said he's got that same high rise on his jump shot. No, incredible. I'm going to keep going. Can I just keep going?
Yeah, keep going. That's why you're here. Yes.
You're retired. Go with it.
Another incredible story of him telling the truth and being ready just to do something. So I'm with the Pistons. It's my first year with the Pistons. I'm working somewhat with Cade Cunningham on his jump shot. He has a really low release, and I've been working with him. It's like mid-season. And, guys are very sensitive about their shooting. They don't like you, it's like telling somebody they're not dressing well or something. They don't want to change things. And he's in, then he goes back to his old habits. He's in, he goes back to his old habits. So he's not getting his elbow up high enough or getting the right release. So he's in a shoot around right now, and I'm just sort of watching him again. And all of a sudden, Jerry walks up, and he says to me, he's not getting a high enough release. He's not getting enough spin. So I just said, hey, Cade, come over here. Cade, come over here. This is the number 1 pick in the draft. And he sees Jerry West, and Jerry just tells him like it is. You're not going to get that shot off in the NBA. You got to get your elbow up high. I'm just like sitting there like a father, so proud, listening to Jerry talk to him. But it wasn't number 1 pick in the draft. Hey, how you doing? Hey, you doing okay? He wanted it. He went right away. You got to get better. You got to get that ball up. It's amazing. He used to take a dribble that was a hard dribble that he wouldn't pick up at his waist. He'd pick all the way up at his shoulder, and now your elbow's already up, and you're into your jump shot. It was the most beautiful jump shot, I think, that I've ever seen in my life, personally.
Coach, that's an interesting story about Cade Cunningham because it ties into what I think is one of the more remarkable things about Jerry in that think about how relevant he stayed for how long. I mean, that's 60 years of being culturally and actually relevant every day. And the fact that a Cade Cunningham that can come along just a couple of years ago and have that reverence and respect for him is pretty remarkable, isn't it? The longevity of Jerry West?
Yeah, so he must have been 83 or 84 at the time. He just walks into Staples Center like he owns it, and he probably should. He probably did literally own it from the way that people respected him, and just was not afraid to talk about anything. So just amazing, but really a proud West Virginian, and this is a guy that here he goes to L.A., right, and that's changed his complete lifestyle from where he came from in Morgantown, and man. No, he flourished. He really flourished. So, great person. I'm glad I got to have the association not only as the head coach at West Virginia University, but also getting to know him as a father and coaching his son a little bit. That it was special.
Coach, let me ask you this. We were making this point last night when we started to try to put things into perspective. Obviously, he's in the category of one of the all-time greatest players. Whatever number you want to put on him, fine, whatever it is, one of the all-time greatest ever. But couldn't you make a case that he was unparalleled when it came to an NBA executive with the deals that he put together and the teams that he put together and the hiring of Pat Riley and Phil Jackson and the whole thing? I mean, has anyone ever assembled like that before?
Well, that's another one. It's so rare. So he can evaluate players, and then he can evaluate coaches, and get those, and have those two guys coaching the Lakers. I mean, it's just that is unparalleled. There's no one that's been able to certainly have a career that he had, where certainly a top 5 player. And let's talk about something else. This is a time with no charter flights. Games every other day, wearing Converse canvas shoes, and I have this photo I keep and show people. It's of Jack Ramsey, the Buffalo Braves coach.
Absolutely,
Tony.
Yep.
And he's got his shirt off, some plaid pants. He's sitting on the trainer's table, and you can see on the chalkboard in the back, UA 610.
United
UA,
Airlines.
And he's got the flight number, UA flight time. What do you guys think that meant?
United Airlines, 6:10
a.m.
Yep.
That was what he had to tell the players, that you better be there at 6:10 a.m. Now in the NBA on that night, they get finished with their game. 2 hours later, they're up in the air in a charter flight with 70 first-class seats, and they're landing and they're landing at 1 in the new city and getting a good night's sleep and sleep until 12. And Jerry was doing that 41 games a year and playing, 40 minutes a night. Just put that into perspective. His whole career. I don't know if they ever chartered his whole career.
Yeah. It's a great
and
point.
L.A. They're flying to New York. They're flying to not to San Antonio, but they're flying all over the place during that time. Just amazing when you put that, because I watched the wear and tear of the NBA players, and it's hard. And for him and Gal Guttridge and Wilt, they just let's go do it. I don't even know if they flew first class.
Yeah.
And certainly Jerry probably did by the end, and Wilt did, but I don't know about the other guys.
And you know what? It was such a different style of play back then. I mean, that was physical. It was dirty. It was hard. It was, I mean, there was no such thing as body recovery. There was no such thing as dietitian.
No.
It was just like, for those guys, they truly were the pioneers of what this thing has become, and it's them. You look back at those guys. Those were the founding fathers of this unbelievable multi-billion-dollar industry that this has become.
It's what's sad, and I think we have to do a better job of, and continue to educate the young players, the young fans, to have an appreciation for what pioneers they were, how good they were. They were not paid. I was being around in the NBA for 3 years, around a lot of old players that don't love a lot of the new players today because of the lack of appreciation for what they built.
Mm-hmm.
And it is I think we have to continue to educate those guys. For executives in today's pro basketball should make sure that their coaches and their front office is educating people so that having an appreciation of what you do is a super strength when you go out and actually perform, when you appreciate how lucky you are. And instead of worrying about some agent, telling you got to get more shots up, because we got a contract coming up in 2 years. It's a big difference.
Coach, we've talked over the last 24 hours about the incredible love that Jerry had for this state and how he kept that and kept it front and center. He wasn't just a guy from West Virginia. He was a West Virginian all the way up until the day he passed yesterday. So you saw that, as you mentioned, in different ways, not only the basketball Jerry West and not only watching Jerry West when you were growing up, but you mentioned as a dad when Johnny arrived. Mm-hmm. How was he as a parent of someone in that program? Did you talk to him more? Did you talk to him less? Did you ever call upon him for advice? How was he during that time?
Well, I hope Johnny won't get mad at me for telling this, but we had a really difficult thing that really it was more mind than body of making a 5:30 mile to be able to start practicing. And Johnny had never done anything like this before, like most of our freshmen. And Johnny was hitting a wall and really struggling with it. And it was almost a mind thing for John because it's hard to do. It's really hard to do. And all our freshmen had troubles, but Johnny seemed to have more trouble than anybody else. So I called Jerry, and I said, Jerry, I'm just telling you, if he doesn't make this, I can't break the rules. He's not going to be on the team. And Jerry just said, do what you do, Coach. You're not. They got no issues with it, right? You just keep helping him become a player, and if he's got to, take a circuitous route to get on the roster, but one day by taking a year or something just to get himself really with his mind to be able to get over these obstacles, do it. Guess what? 2 weeks later, Johnny made it. So I think there might have been a side conversation after that.
Sidebar.
Where Jerry, it probably wasn't as soft as my interpretation of it. I'm certain of that. And Johnny flew through it about 2 weeks later and got it.
Yes.
So, but he, other than that, Brad, and it was only 1 year, he was hands off.
Yeah.
I don't think I can still remember Willie Akers on that in the first game we played my last year at West Virginia. We beat Mount St. Mary's because Deshaun Butler hit 2 foul shots with, with 2 seconds to go in the game, tie game, for us to win. And I saw Willie Akers afterwards because Willie Akers told the truth too. He said, John, I think that's the only game you're going to win this year. And you know what? If Jerry was there, Jerry would have said the same damn thing. And so I was, and I was thinking to Willie, you might be right, Willie. We got a long ways to go with this team. It turned out better than that. So just his generation, obviously, of basketball players. When you think he's in there with Oscar and Wilt, amazing, amazing players. I think there was a stat I saw. We had the kid Xavier Simpson go in his first NBA game, and they started, and they were just trying. Oklahoma City was trying to lose, and they put him in the game. And at the end of the game, he was the 5th player in history to win a game and play 40 minutes in that first, and play 40 minutes and score 10 points in his first game. And the other 4 were Jerry West, Oscar Robertson, Jerry Lucas, and somebody else. I don't know who it was, but those dudes used to go into their first game in the NBA and play 40 minutes the first game.
Yeah.
There was not any minute restrictions for those dudes.
No load management.
It's amazing.
Yeah, no load management.
It's no load management. No, it was like, hey, we got another game. Let's go. Stretch and let's go. And there wasn't a lot of video either. There was 2 assistants. They would travel then with, 13 players, a trainer, 2 coaches, and that was a travel party.
16.
I mean, it might get to 15 or 18. When I was traveling both with the Pistons and the Cleveland Cavaliers, 70 people on that plane, 70.
Wow.
And these dudes were going on the road with 18 people maybe.
What a world.
So, what it was simple. It was simple. Get to the game. Those rookies would miss that 6 a.m. flight, get fined $1,000, and they're only making 50 maybe. I mean, only that was a lot then, but it's fine. Get to the next flight, and then show up for the game. It was different. I don't think Jerry missed many of those flights.
No, he was the guy that was always on time. Well, listen, man, those are great stories. We really do appreciate it. I'm glad that you had those opportunities to interact with him through the years, and we really do appreciate it. By the way, what did you shoot when you golfed at Canaan?
I have golfed, Tony, like 1 or 2 times a year for up until 2 years ago, and I started golfing 2 years ago. I love it, but those are some long uphill things. So I hit a 47 and a 47 for a 94. I'm chasing 90 right now. I'm
Good.
chasing 90
Attaboy.
hard.
Attaboy.
But 3 days of in a row, I can hardly touch my toes today. I'm a sore man, but I loved it. Back with some of my Wheeling College former teammates, 8 of us got together. Mostly teammates or guys that were with us at college. It was a great time. That being back in West Virginia, as it was when I was in Charleston with you.
Yeah, that was great.
Tony, back in April.
Hey, one last thing. As we record, the Boston Celtics are on the cusp of winning a world championship, and the gentleman that you recruited to come play at West Virginia is the head coach. I would imagine there have been times during this series that you're looking there and you're watching Joe Mazzulla, and you've got to be just like overcome with emotions as to what this kid has become.
He's done it the right way. Fairmont State coach. He started in the film room with the Celtics at the lowest levels with them. And you know what? I got to get this out there. Jeff Neubauer sent me the other day, my former assistant Jeff Neubauer, the report on him with that we did on players we were really serious about. And he talked about his talent and his quickness and all these things. But Jeff said in this last paragraph, the number one reason we have to recruit this kid is he is our type of young man. He is a team-first guy. He will be tremendous for our culture because he's a winner. And it's like it's the greatest prophecy, one of the greatest prophecies I've ever seen. It's
Wow.
like coming out of the first Testament or something. It's coming out, and it said this guy is going to be special. And he said that Josh Merkel, who's the coach at Randolph Macon now, a great coach, was the GA, found it and just sent it to us. I also saw I saw Joe this last year, the season before this, and I went back and I showed him. I found the mid-year report that I gave him as a freshman, and it was like trying to be. It basically said you're really doing well for a freshman. You're doing anything, but you got to practice at game speed, and because you're playing at game speed, but you got to practice more to be better. And so when I showed it to him at our game, we got a good laugh about it. But I also wanted to make sure that a few of the Celtics players got to see it as well, and they laughed. They laughed a lot about it. So just a special young man, a special young man that has stayed close with all his former teammates. That group, that freshman class that I was speaking about in 2006-07, they stayed together. Deshaun and not Alex Ruoff, but Deshaun Wellington and all those guys. They have stayed together over all this time. So, and very proud of Joe. So.
All right, my friend. Stay well. We really appreciate it, and hopefully our paths will cross in the not-too-distant future.
I hope so. I'm Ren Baker is arranging. We hope it can come all together to bring back that 2005 20 anniversary team this year, Tony, and honor them. And I hope I'm there, and we can get as many of those guys back. It's tough for a basketball game because so many of them are coaching, so we're trying to find some other way of honoring them that they all can make it.
That'd be perfect.
That'd be awesome.
Yep.
Could be good.
All right, buddy.
Guys.
Thank you so much.
All right, bye now.
Thanks, Coach.
Thanks.
There he is, John Beilein. His thoughts on the passing of West Virginia's Jerry West. Three guys before the game is brought to us in part by Comax Business Systems. When it comes to phone systems, Comax is the place to be. Why, you may say? Well, when it comes time for a new phone system, you can purchase, lease, or rent your hardware, and everyone in that office is immediately accessible, whether they're in the building, outside of the building. It's a whole new world when it comes to the technology. So if you're in the market for a business phone system, they're the folks to check it out. It's ComaxWV.com. That's ComaxWV.com. Three guys also brought to us by Lou Wendell Marine Sales in St. Albans. You can visit them, take a look at their opportunities waiting on you at LouWendellMarineSales.com. That's LouWendellMarineSales.com, located in St. Albans. Been in business now for over 40 years. Founded in the 1970s, if I'm doing my math correct, and the largest pontoon boat dealer here in our state, recognized as the experts when it comes to pontoon boating. You can check them out. They sell the Avalon Boat Series and manufactured 100% right here in the United States. It is LouWendellMarine.com. So, from the perspective of John Beilein, let's get a perspective from a young fella who grew up in West Virginia, attended Jerry West's high school, East Bank, right, before it consolidated and became Riverside. And Jeff Jenkins joins us. He's the news director at Metro News. And JJ, for years, right, there was always that feel or that Jerry West presence, even though he was long gone while you were growing up. He had this unbelievable aura in the Kanawha Valley, and it never left.
Well, yeah. I mean, Tony, I was from where Jerry West was from, and that meant a lot to me. I don't know if it did to everyone, but it meant a lot to me because, just for some reason I hooked on to Jerry West. I was a little guy, and he went to my high school. I went to his high school, and I had an aunt who was in his high school class. My father was just a couple years ahead of him, so there was always this kind of connection. And he was my first. I'm a big Reds fan, but he was really my first basketball or my first sports kind of hero, right? And I remember, and I've told this story just a couple of times. You know, he had a book called Basketball My Way by Jerry West, and it was a teaching book, and it had great photos in it, just great photos of, and we've actually seen some of those photos in the last day or two here. And he would teach in the book, so you had these great color photos of action, plus there would be like teaching photos of Jerry, Pat Riley, Hot Rod Hundley, and they were, I don't guess they were allowed to wear like Lakers stuff. So they had on like white T-shirts and white shorts. And he's teaching like the pick and roll. And he's teaching, you know, how to, I remember in one part of the book, it was like, you know, the best place on the basketball court to steal from somebody if they're near the midcourt line over by the sideline, because you got them trapped and you can steal the ball from them. You know, just stuff like that.
Right.
So that was like my favorite book growing up. So I'm in Pratt Elementary School, and I'm constantly going to the place. I knew exactly where it was, and I'm constantly going there when you know, like third grade or fourth grade or second grade, you got time in the library to see if that book's there. And it was a pretty popular book because I only got to check it out like a couple of times, right? So I got to check out the book, and so it was that. And then, you know, I think about his sister Pat. I don't know if you ever met her, Tony. Pat West Coast.
I knew the name. That's Bill Knowles' mom, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So Pat Knoll, she was the postmaster in Pratt, my hometown. So I would talk to her constantly about Jerry. You know, about Jerry, and I remember one time, you know, and I don't know what year it was. I wasn't very old, and it may have been after he retired, that he was coming to Charleston to sign autographs or something, and I just thought that maybe he would come to Pratt. You know, maybe he would come like the 30-some miles up to see his sister. You know, I had no idea. So I remember, I think it was on a Saturday, because, you know, where my parents lived, and my mother still lives today, is like across the railroad tracks in Pratt, where you can see everybody come into town, you know. And so I like stood on my porch for it seemed like hours to see if he came into town.
Wow.
You know, and so I thought, well, maybe I missed him. So I like got on my bike and like rode over to Pat's house, because I knew exactly where she lived. Like, it's not like I'm riding past, see if there's any strange cars.
You're doing a drive-by, yeah.
I'm doing a drive-by, and I don't know what I would have said or anything if I would have met him. But I mean, that didn't come about actually. But it was just, yeah, I think you're right. It was just constantly present that this is where, you know, Jerry West was from. You were reminded at the school because there was his photo, there was his jersey, his high school jersey, and it was just kind of a constant reminder.
You know, I'm going to add to that. Like, you had the most, literally, you were in the same school, but I think your story is in existence in all 55 counties for kids growing up. Like, we had John Antonic on, and we'll hear from John coming up here in just a little bit. He basically said the same thing. When you're young and you say, hey, this guy here, he's from your state. Now, for you, this is from your high school. Now, this guy, you count him in and you say, there's kids all over the state who just had this Jerry West seed planted in them. And I think he truly respected that. He loved that. And that's why I think to this day, right, long after his career was long over, it's like he is still so present.
But isn't that why he was such a valuable resource for generations of the state? Is Jeff, the ability to see what he became from where he is from? It provided a blueprint, and obviously no one else gets to that level, but to whatever level of success people had throughout the state, he provided a great example of, you can come from this. It can be as small as possible and still achieve absolute greatness. That had to be amazingly powerful for generations of West Virginia kids, you included.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. I became a Laker fan because of Jerry West. I mean, there's no doubt. I mean, I was only 9 years old, and I was one of these guys, and I heard Coach Beeline talk. I was one of these guys, you caught like an ABC game on Sunday.
Yep.
You know, and I may have seen West play maybe just a couple of times live. But you know, I became a Lakers fan and always hooked to Jerry West. And I told this story earlier, like I really never got to meet him until one of these years that Metro News was doing the high school basketball tournament at the Coliseum there in Charleston, and I was the timeout coordinator. So it must have been like the first couple of years or something. So like he came to the tournament, and he sat in those SSAC reserve seats, like right behind the scores table, right? So he's like right behind me. And I'm going like, oh, I got to say something to Jerry West. Got to say something. It's like I turn around and I said something like, we got a lot in common, me and you. Said same high school. You went to WVU. I went to WVU. I know your sister, all this. And I kind of bumbled over my words and stuff, and he was just very gracious. And he said, oh, that's great, and shook my hand. So whatever. But, so that's, that was actually kind of neat. That's kind of funny. But, yeah, I mean, I still remember, like, as a kid growing up, every time, I'm not kidding you, every time we drove through Shillian, because he was from Shillian. I know some place people call it, I can get into semantics there about Cabin Creek and Shillian, but he was from Shillian. And every time we drove through Shillian, which was like all the time, because it's on the other side of East Bank on the way to Charleston, there was a sign because Shillian was unincorporated. So you had the Shillian unincorporated sign, the green sign, and underneath it was just a black sign, and it just said, black and white sign, lettering in white, it said, home of Jerry West, All-Pro, All-American.
Awesome.
And that's all it said.
Isn't that awesome?
That's all it said. And I saw that sign what seemed like a million times. And I always would think about Jerry West. And then I would, and kind of, they said he lived kind of, his mother's house, where he grew up, was like near like the Shillian Bridge, the old Shillian Bridge, kind of underneath the bridge. And I would always like look over there, just, stuff as a kid that you do. And, and I remember one of his tragedy, he had a lot of tragedy. One of his tragedies, and this was something could be replaced, was his, after he won the Olympic gold medal, his mother's house burned down. And he lost his original gold medal in the fire and had to get a replacement from the Roman Olympics because of the fire destroyed that gold medal. That's, it's just another thing there. But, yeah, so it was just part, I think you're right, it's just part of the fabric of my growing up.
And Jeff, think about that, because I do think, and I said this yesterday, he's one of the rare individuals. There's so much to say about him, you almost don't know where to start the conversation. There's just so many facets of it. But let's take the West Virginia angle for a second, because that's the one that continues to amaze me for a guy that was in Los Angeles for whatever that was, 60-some years of his life? Right. That's what he's associated with is L.A. Couple things. Remains best friends with a guy that lives in Logan, in Willie Acres, and we're going to hear from Willie coming up. And kept that connection. He not only didn't run from his West Virginia heritage, he was proud of that and mentioned it, and it was part of his fabric of his life. He wasn't from West Virginia, and I said this yesterday. He wasn't from West Virginia. He was a West Virginian right up until the day he died. Came back here and he visited, and think how amazing that is, Jeff. You're what? You're 60 years old. Your entire life, right? Childhood, adulthood. You had this guy to follow and look up to, and I think his love for West Virginia was so evident and probably the most special part about him. And Tony, I'll give you this quick story. I don't know if I've told you this part. And Jeff, I don't know if you've heard this. When I worked in the athletic department, we were going to do, one year we got to the point where we wanted to do a Jerry West throwback jersey. And we had the meeting, and I was tasked with calling him and asking for permission. We're just letting him know we were going to do it. He was going to say yes. But, back in those times, guys, if you needed something from Jerry or you wanted to ask Jerry for something or Jerry needed to be involved in something, you ran through Gary McPherson, right? Gary and Jerry were close for a long, long time. And so you didn't make a call to Jerry West. You called Gary and had a meeting. Here's what we need. And then Gary would call Jerry. So you didn't have 15 different people calling. This was one of the first times I can remember somebody calling Jerry West. I said, I got to call. I'm calling Jerry West. So, guys, I sat there for a good 10 or 15 minutes before I made the call. And we've been fortunate enough in this business. You've been around a lot of people. That was one where you got a little bit like, I'm going to get ready to call Jerry West. Like, what? Do I ask for Jerry? Do I ask for Jerry West? Do I ask for Mr. West? What the hell do I even say when I call? So finally, I get ready to make the call, and the secretary answers, and he's not available, and so I leave a message, which I kind of expected. The chances you get Jerry West in the first call. So I leave my message, Brad Howe, WV Athletic Department. Here's my number. Just had something real quick I wanted to run by him. Won't take more than 10 minutes. She said, okay, great. He'll get right back to you. I thought, okay, he's going to get right back to me. Sure, he's going to get right back to me. It's probably in a couple days, or I'll have to call back in about a week. So I leave, go out, do something else, had a meeting, come back in, voicemail flashing. Jerry West returned my call, like within the hour. I kept that voicemail for every bit to 8 to 10 years. I wish I had known technology well enough to be able to transfer that somewhere else, right? Jerry West saying, "Hi, Brad." Jerry West calling, returning your call, Jerry West says. So I call him back immediately, and I get through and I get him. And so he couldn't have been nicer, right? He couldn't have been nicer, and I explained what we wanted to do. And I was thinking about this last night. It's not like this was 60 years ago. This wasn't that long. It's less than 20 years ago. There were no marketing companies involved. We weren't in a room full of lawyers on either side. He didn't pass me off to somebody else. He didn't have somebody else return the call. He didn't even need to really get on the phone, right? And he calls me directly, and we talked for 10 minutes, and I told him what we wanted. And he ended with this, guys, and I thought about this all day yesterday. He said the only thing he asked me one question when I asked if he was okay if we did a throwback jersey. Because remember, the throwback jersey is a different color. It was a totally different look, more royal blue than the Navy. So it's a totally different look. He asked one question the whole conversation. He said, "Is it good for West Virginia?" That's all he said. And I said, "Mr. West, it is. I think this would be very good for us." He said, "I'm all behind it. Go ahead and do it. You have my blessing." How about that? I thought that's a great line from Jerry. That's all he said. Is it good for West Virginia?
Yeah.
How appropriate is that from him?
Yeah, perfect. Spot on.
Yeah, two real quick things, Tony. And there's a guy, when I was in junior high, there was a substitute teacher who would come in every now and then. His name was Duke Shaver, all right, and Duke Shaver. And his claim to fame, and he would brag on this as a substitute teacher, that he cut Jerry West from like the junior high team. Early in the junior high years.
How about that?
Yeah, Duke Shaver. Yeah, he would tell that story. He said, "How smart am I?" He said, "I cut Jerry West, from the Shillian Junior High School team, because Shillian had a junior high." And actually, I saw some photos of that last night, and of Jerry on the team. I think maybe it must have been 8th grade, maybe, or something. And he was the guy holding the ball in the team picture. But yeah, and then in that Knicks game in the championship, in the finals, when he hit that shot, right?
Midcourt.
Hit midcourt to send it into overtime, right? And in the book, Basketball My Way, there's a great shot. I don't know if it's Sports Illustrated or whomever. It's underneath the basket, looking back toward the midcourt of Jerry on the follow through and the ball going through the basket. And so this is a teaching book. It's like a textbook. It's a teaching book. And he comments on all the photos. He tells what's going on. And in this photo, he just simply says, "This is what happened." And then the last line of the book, the last photo in the book, it says, "I do not teach this shot." That's what it said.
Use only as needed. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yes. Yeah.
We had last night. I got a call after the show, Sportsline was over, from Gail Catlett. And he shared a couple of stories. And one of those stories was when he came as a freshman, Jerry, was here, but Gail had a redshirt season, and he came in. And Fred Shaw said, "Okay, this is what I want you to do. I want you to guard West in practice because you're big physically. You're stronger than he is right now, and I really want him to develop his left hand." And he said, "You understand?" He said, "Yeah." He said, "Now here's the thing." I said, I want you to be physical with him." He said, "If you hurt him, you will lose your scholarship." And he said, I said, Coach Schaus, I completely understand on that. But Coach Catlett said he was just, the athleticism, the speed, the quickness, the ability to play the game. It was breathtaking, and you could just see it right from there. So. And
then one more, I was thinking of this too. Just one more thing is that Jerry played at the Field House, which is later called Stansbury Hall. And, they chopped up in the classrooms, but left the courts, for intramurals and different things after they moved into the Coliseum. Where was my first class ever at WVU? Very first class.
Stansbury.
Freshman year. Stansbury Annex.
How about
so he
that?
went through Stansbury Hall, went into Stansbury Annex for English 1. I had it I was like, "Oh, man, this is great. This is where Jerry West played."
Amazing, isn't it?
Right, yeah, right there is my first class, yes.
All right, JJ, we appreciate your time greatly. Thank you very much.
All right, talk to you guys.
All right,
thanks, JJ.
There he is, Jeff Jenkins, News Director, Vice President of News of Metro News, East Bank High School graduate, and a guy that grew up, obviously, right in that area. And, Jerry West was a huge, huge part of his life. Three Guys Before the Game is brought to us in part by the tremendous folks at GoMart. We're bouncing around this time of the year, right? It's summer. So we're flying around doing this, doing that. When it comes to fuel, get yourself a GoMart Rewards card because it instantly racks up your rewards points, which then in turn saves you money every time you go, plus food items as well. Big hydration season, Senator.
Big hydration.
You got to drink. And then you go into a GoMart, you're not going to come out of there dry. I mean, they got a lot of stuff to hydrate, whether it just be water,
Got that.
drinks, Gatorades, Coca-Cola.
Get a little of those electrolytes in you. If you need 'em.
Electrolytes. Yeah. So get your rewards card. Go to GoMart.com. Visit them and get that rewards card. You got all these promotions, triple your points certain days, double your points. Check it out. Get the app. Just download the app. That's GoMart. Early on, we mentioned that one of Jerry's teammates was Willie Akers. And those two Southern West Virginia guys, Willie, born, raised in Mullins, and Jerry, obviously, in Eastern Kanawha County. And they hooked up together when they were still in high school, and it formed a relationship that never broke. Never broke. They were just the best of friends, went through all life experiences over the last 60-plus years, and we had the opportunity to bring Willie Akers on Sportsline, and let's listen into a little bit of that as Willie looks back toward his relationship with Jerry West.
Did you see that greatness at Boys State when he was at East Bank and you were at Mullins? Was it evident and you knew what course he was going to take, or did it take a while once you guys got to WVU for that to come out?
Well, that's a funny story. My friend from Mullins went to Boys State. He was in a cabin with Jerry, and I was in another cabin. We had at least 3 or 4 All-State players, but Jerry wasn't an All-State player. He was an honorable mention and led scoring in Kanawha Valley. Well, this guy brought him over to meet me, and we met, and he said he wanted to play with us. And so he and I kind of teamed up and played on the court. And so we were playing defense right off the bat, and one of our teammates went up to shoot, and Jerry slapped the ball out, blocked it with ease. And I went, well, that's pretty good. Then we came on and played the game. He was outstanding. He could play defense. He could shoot. He could jump. He was a pass, just everything. So I got with him. I stayed with Jerry from that time till we left West Virginia University. I played with him all the time, and I knew what to do to help him, and he knew what I needed to do. I played a lot of defense and rebounding. I was a scorer when I left high school, but I ended up playing defense and passing. So it was just one of those things. And like I said before, he was unreal when it come playing. When the going was good, we were way ahead. He didn't score at all, and the other team members would score. And we turned right around in one school. We beat them pretty bad. I had 16 and he had 15. Well, that's kind of unusual. And but we went on to Tennessee, and Tennessee was ranked in the top 10, and we were too. And Jerry scored 44. So that's the way it went.
Because when it comes to the greatest of the greats, what do? When it gets the most challenging and the most difficult, the greatest of all players make the unbelievable great plays. And yet, as he said, when they know the situation's under control, they're more than happy to defer. But when it comes time to, like, here we go, got to make a play, right? He was that guy. Like, give me the ball. We all often talk on this show, like, we want guys that say, or girls, give me the ball. I got this. Give it to me. I got to take care of it. That's true greatness.
He might have been the greatest example of that. There's been a lot. And he's talked about that before, hence the nickname Mr. Clutch, right? I mean, you can go look at the stats that back up what he did in the final 30 seconds of games. He was an ultimate get out of the way and give me the ball kind of guy. I watched last night, WVU re-released the jersey ceremony.
Right.
Which, by the way, you look like you're about 10, which was startling. So they re-released that. So I went back and listened to that whole speech from Jerry West again. And one of the things that caught me that I don't remember it live when he started talking about his teammates and how important they were, but then he talked about Willie specifically, and he turned and faced Willie. He referred to Willie Akers as his soulmate.
Yes.
He said, if I could have a male soulmate, it is that man.
They were boys,
When you
man.
think about a strong statement for somebody, right?
Yep.
And those guys lived that up until this week when Jerry passed away.
Yeah, absolutely. We talked about a Jeff Jenkins who grew up right in the valley there with Jerry West, the aura of Jerry West. Here's another one for you. Chris Wallace, not from Kanawha County, but he's from Upshur County, but born and raised in Buchanan, and absolutely loved the sport of basketball and has been in the NBA now for almost 40 years. He's 2 years away from 40 years, which is unbelievable.
Stunning. Yep.
So Chris shares a couple of stories about Jerry, how instrumental he was in keeping him in the league and getting him work in the league. And he shared with one story about Jerry when it came to drafting, how he handled the others in the front office. Let's listen to that. Chris Wallace on a story about Vlade Divac.
You can either evaluate talent. I don't care if you're talking about evaluating for college football or the NBA, or you can't. And he was very confident in his ability to evaluate talent. I'll give you a story. Vlade Divac, who the Lakers took in the late 20s in the draft in, I believe, 1989. There was a player from Missouri, a 7-footer at the time, Gary Leonard, who was a big-name high school player out of St. Louis, was an underachiever for a couple years and then came on his last year. He was another possibility there late in the first round. And as they're deciding who to take, Jerry went around the room, asked all the scouts and personnel people, who do you want? Leonard. Every guy said Leonard. After the last guy gave his opinion, Jerry said, "Man, I appreciate your opinion, but we're taking Vlade Divac."
How'd that work out? Pretty doggone good.
So, he didn't wave it. He didn't wet his whistle and wave it, put it in the wind, see how it was blowing. He knew who he wanted.
That's pretty wild, isn't it?
I love that.
You could just see that happen. All right, here's another
real
one.
quick, that's the executive version of give me the ball.
Yeah.
Like, thanks, everybody. Appreciate the work. Here's what we're doing. Give me the basketball. I'll take it now. I'll handle it.
Isn't that it? And that's what John said when Coach Beeline came on here right off the bat. He said he had unbelievable confidence. Like, he never wavered in his confidence. Like, he knew what he knew what he thought. He thought what he knew. He's like, okay, this is what I'm doing.
But think about that. Think if you're Jerry West making decisions in basketball. Take the thing that you're most confident in life, and then you're Jerry West, that was one of the greatest players of all time. You're just like, I don't, all due respect, I don't need you to tell me anything.
Yes.
I got it.
Absolutely. Here's another one from Chris on someone playing around on a potential trade, and Jerry West got involved.
You knew exactly what he thought. And I'll give you another example of that. When I was at Boston early on with Rick Pitino, we drafted Paul Pierce in the 1998 draft. And then the NBA went immediately into a lockout that started on July 1 and wasn't lifted until 10th or so of January. So we've got nothing but time on our hands. And Pitino was president and head coach. And Rick is an action junkie and needs a lot of activity. And the people that he is friends with are all wheelers and dealers. They're deal guys, Wall Street guys, deal makers in the business side. So as we came out of the lockout, our group was a little bored with the fact we had Paul Pierce. The novelty had worn off, and we hadn't even started practice yet. But what could we get for Paul in a trade? So they had me call around. They had me call Jerry to ask if he'd be interested in Eddie Jones. You remember the former Temple star?
Sure,
He was with the
absolutely.
Lakers for Paul Pierce. And I called Jerry up and floated that idea, and he immediately said, "Don't say it unless you mean it. Because if you mean it, I'll go into Dr. Buss, and we'll do this in 0.2 of a second." Now, I come back to Pitino and tell him that. You talk about throwing cold water over somebody's head. That was the end of going out and seeing what we could get from Paul Pierce. And thank God Jerry is who he was, because anybody else I've ever dealt with would have just inside been saying, "I can't believe how dumb these guys are." We're going to fleece them in this thing. And thank God he didn't, because I wouldn't be here today working in the NBA if we'd have made that deal.
He's not overstating that. Chris isn't.
Right. Let's explain that.
So Paul Pierce ends up being a Hall of Fame player, right? Led the Celtics to a championship and is a Hall of Fame guy. Had he been traded for Eddie Jones, who had a nice NBA career but wasn't Paul Pierce, the blame would have landed on the general manager at the time, which was Chris Wallace. So Chris would have worn that bad trade around his neck for his entire NBA career.
That would have been his scarlet letter.
Yeah,
he would always
no
they would look at it and go, Chris Wallace, that's the guy that traded Paul Pierce for Eddie Jones.
Yeah.
He'd be done. He'd be out of the league.
So Chris isn't overstating it when he said Jerry, in essence, helped save his job by saying, you better make sure this is what you want to do.
Yeah.
How about that? We'll do it in 0.2 seconds. Amazing.
All right, one more here for you, looking back. And here's another West Virginian, John Antonik. So we hit Kanawha County, we hit Upshur County. Now we're going to hit Wetzel County. Johnny grew up in Wetzel County, in Magnolia High School, played at Magnolia High School. Now his job is to basically oversee and generate all the content that you see coming out of WVU, mostly on WVUsports.com. So John's the one that wrote the story that you probably saw on that site. And he joined us, and I thought he did an unbelievable job of putting some things into perspective in regard to what his feeling was toward Jerry West, and probably it's shared by so many other kids that grew up in the state of West Virginia about Jerry.
Amazing, too, about the logo. The NBA's never really acknowledged that that's the logo, and he would always run from that. Jerry would. He would always deflect questions or comments about the logo. Isn't that also, John, exactly like he was, deflecting the credit? The guy's the logo, you're right. That's unbelievable. And he would always deflect that.
Well, that's our values, Brad. I mean, that's who Jerry West was. And I think that's why he's so loved and revered, because the values that made him who he is are the things that we so admire and adore. And, you know, I'm choking up thinking about it now, man. I mean, he was just a guy that we all wanted to be. And, I mean, I can remember as a young professional, you know, he would come here for the dedications and different things. And I just sat there and I said, man, that's what I want to be like. I want to be like him, the way he dresses, the way he conducts himself, the way he carries himself. That's just a dignified, classy man and a West Virginian.
Tony, haven't we said that same thing? But John, you're right. The presence that he had all the way up until the end was so not only just the posture and the look and the suit, it's like he walked around with a ring light. Like he was lit up
Exactly
differently
right.
than most people.
No,
John,
you're
right in the room,
He's
he
statuesque.
looked different. And the statuesque is a great term.
He's statuesque. Like
Great
you
term.
walked into a room and he had this presence about
Yeah.
him. And you're like, whoa, that person is not like anything else in this room.
Agree.
Right? So here I'm going to let you go, Johnny, but here's someone that wrote in. 1971, my father and a couple other gentlemen started a youth basketball league in Harrison County for 9 and 10-year-olds and 11 and 12s. They contacted Jerry West. They got permission to use his name for the youth league. Hence, Jerry West Youth Basketball emerged. How many thousands of youngsters did he touch? God bless Jerry. And there you go. Johnny.
And, you know, one other thing real quick here, guys, what he did for Western University, all the time he honored, all his names. Look at all the things that he put his name on that have benefited, whether it's the hospital, the Cancer Center, Children's Hospital, the Pride of West Virginia, the libraries. I mean, it goes on and on.
Yeah. All right, buddy. Be good. Thank you for your time. Be good.
Thank you.
See you, man. There he is, and that is John Antonik. You can go to WVUsports.com and read his. There we go. All right.
Pretty amazing.
That wasn't as smooth as edit. Hey,
His presence was
his
still,
presence,
right?
Yeah. Let's put this thing to bed with a couple of things, various things that we've picked up from some of our listeners. Here's an email that I received from a gentleman by the name of Bob Melfis. We know Bob, Harrisburg, PA.
Yep.
Tony, it was 1956. My grandfather had gotten 3 comp basketball tickets from his lifelong buddy, Tony Constantine, the legendary sports writer. My grandfather, Dad, and I walked down to the field house from the homestead on McLean Avenue. The place was packed for the early freshman game. Everyone was there just to see West play. Truthfully, I can't say I remember much about his performance or even if the freshman Mountaineers won, but I can always say I saw the logo play in a college game, 1956. Now, let me show you a couple of pictures. Let me generate a couple of things here. Hang on. This is Charlie from Midlothian, who's our buddy. Remember Charlie steals gas?
Yeah, no, he didn't steal gas.
What do you mean he didn't?
Well, he gets the discount from Kroger. He's not stealing.
Oh, it's almost
part of the promotion.
Close. Charlie from Midlothian. He said, yesterday was a tough day, to say the least. I'm not ashamed to admit that I cried like a baby when I heard the news of Jerry passing. He's part of my Facebook profile picture when I received my Biddy basketball certificate from him at the Charleston Y in the 4th grade. So there's Charlie's team. All right, now listen, hold that picture there 1 second. Also included in this picture of the All-Star team, that included Kim West, number 2, Jerry's nephew, and Curtis Price, number 9, right next to him, who would play for the Mountaineers. As so many have said, if you grew up playing basketball in West Virginia, Jerry was your hero. And if you take a look at the next picture, that's when Jerry came in and presented the certificate. That was down there in Charleston. And that see, he dressed well even then.
He did.
Like, that's a sweet sweater. Those are nice pants. That's a good look. He's got good. You think he went to Fine Looking Phil's?
He very well could have.
Yeah, could have been.
Looked good.
Meanwhile, here's another one for you. This came in earlier today. Hey, guys, yesterday I had a speaking engagement at the Greenbrier, my first ever trip there. We had dinner at Prime 44 West. That's the restaurant in the Greenbrier named after Jerry. They served champagne for the entire place to toast Jerry. It was interesting to explain to the folks at our table and to tell the story of how we follow him just because he was one of us. The same for Joe Mazzulla playing and coaching that night. And they said to him, you mean you only care about the Celtics because the coach played at West Virginia? Yes, that's just West Virginia fans. Once a Mountaineer, always a Mountaineer. And there's some of the shots inside Prime 44 if you've ever been in there. They got a great deal of memorabilia of Jerry West. Well, there you go. We hope that we gave you a little bit, maybe some stories that you hadn't heard in the past as we reflect on the most iconic Mountaineer of all time. Football, basketball, doesn't matter. He is the dude. Always will be the dude.
A remarkable life well lived.
Yeah, and a true West Virginia. All right, that'll do it for us. We appreciate it. Thanks for checking us out on this special episode of Three Guys Before the Game. Coming up next week, our next episode is Summer Series with WVU football player Oliver Straw. That one's already in the can, as they say.
It's a dandy.
It is really super good. I mean, this kid he's been around. I mean, this guy he's like traveled like someone like 3 times his age. It's really good. He's a good kid, and we'll get to that next week. All right, that'll do it for us. Three Guys Before the Game, brought to us in part by the fine folks at Comax Business Systems. Check them out at comaxwv.com. They keep West Virginia's business data safe, secure, and efficient for 25 years. By Gomart. Get a Gomart Rewards card, download their app, and just save millions of dollars. Go to gomart.com for details. That's gomart.com. And by Lou Wendell Marine Sales in St. Albans. They sell family fun. Visit LouWendellMarineSales.com. I also encourage you to go to the website. They got that live camera. You can see what the water's doing.
And I'm telling
Kinda
you,
neat.
next couple weeks here,
You better be on the water.
Prime boating season.
You better be on the water because it's going to get so hot. I mean, it's hot. It's getting hot.
Get out there.
Yeah.
Get out there.
Thanks to our producer, Zach Krawczyk, and Austin Wright. And the show was so good we had to have 2 of guys back there.
Had to double dip
They
out there.
they relayed. Like they tagged out. I went back in there. So one guy's left, another guy's there. So anyway, it's good. John Beeline, thank you very much. And all the rest of the folks. Thanks for being with us. 3 Guys Before the Game. See you.